Greetings, guys. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network. We have an amazing guest in the studio today. We have the Dr.Bernice A. King, the CEO of the King Center here in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be with you again.
Yes, good to be with you too.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I do want to start by saying this. I just want to thank you and the rest of the King Center staff. It's been amazing working with y'all thus far. I feel like we've been, we've been doing Studios with King for about 5. Well, I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
Oh, so. Wow. Time flies.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, it's definitely been enjoyable.
You're really all grown up now.
I know. Yeah. Because I started when I was in like high school or early college, and now I'm out and graduated now. So, yeah, so I definitely appreciate that. But thank you so much for being here. Like I said, once again, we got a lot to talk about. So first, I want to hit on this. I know recently we've had some recent tragedy here in Georgia that we had the shooting at the high school and stuff. And on X, you recently posted, you said this loss must propel us to take action, right? What action needs to be taken?
Well, you know, I say to people, this is not a one step. This is not a one thing. There's no one solution to what's going on. And let me just level set, because the reality is it's never going to holistically stop. I mean, I don't think we'll get to a place in our lifetime where we'll never see this ever happen. But I do think we'll get to a place where it's not common. It's not, you know, something we hear about, you know, it actually is occurring more than we realize. It just doesn't make the news. But hopefully we can diminish what's happening so that it's so rare. But with that said, you know, everybody when this happens goes into their, you know, political, ideological background or familiarity, which is, you know, we need more guns. We need to give the teachers guns, you know, all kind of stuff. Or we need gun control legislation. We need to ban this. We need to ban that. The reality is we do need some policies in place. I mean, common sense, as we call them, policies in place to protect our young people. But at the same time, we also have to start looking holistically at what kind of world we want to live in. What kind of society do we want? You know, we have such an affinity for violence in this nation. We got to ask some critical questions and do some serious introspection. We have to decide, you know, how much does music and entertainment play in all of this? Because there's a subliminal effect when you're taking in so much violence, you know, through music and entertainment. There's an effect when you are engaged in violent video games. Those are not just games. That's not just entertainment. It's doing something to our subconscious mind, and more importantly, it's tapping into, I call, the lower self. And we have a higher self that we need to start appealing to and start creating things to help to elevate us to that place. And so those are decisions we have to begin to make. We got to address the mental illness in our society as well, because to a certain extent, you know, in some instances, mental illness is driving people in this direction. But I think finally we have to ask the critical question of, why do people feel the need to utilize a gun on another human being, period? What is that about? We need to analyze that. We need to start talking about that. I think we spend too much time just talking about guns and what to do about guns. We need to be talking about what do we need to do about each other and the things that drive us, you know, because I don't know if we studied that. Have we looked at all of these different instances where young people have been killed in school to see, you know, what seems to be a commonality, you know, in those that are you know, doing these killings? And is there something that we need to look at and begin to do related to that? So for me, it's a holistic and a comprehensive approach.
Got it. Okay. And looking at this election, we're in an election season now. This is something that is on the ballot. And what I want to know is, when it comes to this, how important is civil rights within the election?
I think civil rights and human rights is important. I'd like to couch it all under human rights. My father said, in fact, once he left Selma, that we're moving now into the realm of human rights, where there are not necessarily any laws and legislation in place, because human rights is a hard issue. You know, how I treat you has a lot to do with outcomes. If I don't respect your humanness, then I'm going to do things. I'm going to pass policies, create policies. I'm going to do things. I'm going to set things up, you know, that will totally disregard or disrespect you. And so I think it's always, not just on a ballot, I think it's always ever present. And whether we're talking about local, state, or federal, you know, that needs to be our mindset, because what's happening every day that people are concerned about in different ways, we're all concerned about different things. Those things are impacted by policies and laws and ordinances, you know. And if people don't understand their role and responsibility to participate in a democracy, guess what happens? Just the universe itself. You put the universe on notice, well, this doesn't matter to me. So it'll begin to be taken away. It'll begin to be diminished, and eventually we won't have a democracy. So if nothing else, I'm voting on the ballot for democracy, because in a society of such diverse individuals, I haven't yet personally seen another alternative in a secular world. And so we have to engage, and we have to be creative and innovative. I mean, generations before us set this in motion. What do we want to do different going forward? If we want 6, 7, 8 party alternatives that are valid, viable, because we have, you know, third parties, but now they're not as viable. If we want to see a change in that, what is the work that we have to do? What foundation do we need to lay to do that work? And we can't be lazy about it, because it's hard work. When you're talking about transforming the way things are, you know, we always talk about, you know, we need to reform. Some people said we need to start over, you know, even in the policing and all that. That sounds good. But work has to go into what we're talking about, and reality has to fit it. Because the reality is we're in such a place as a world now, with all these guns out in the world, that the essence of what policing represents in that realm can't totally go away. You may not call it policing, but when somebody's, you know, in my neighborhood and doing some crazy stuff, I'm not waiting for my neighbors to check it out, you know, deal with it. Yeah, we're watchful. But in terms of from a legal standpoint, you need to have the intervention of law enforcement, you know. But beyond that, you know, we do have to look at, okay, if there's mental illness in this situation, how do we complement what we're talking about in terms of law enforcement? Because many instances we know people, you know, who've recently where they come in and the person's no longer here.
Yeah.
How did we go from, you know, a call where this person had issues and concerns to now they're the one that, you know, the perpetrator, you know? So, yeah, I think being civically engaged should be a priority in everybody's life.
Yeah, now that definitely makes sense. And one thing that you did hit on, you talked about hard work, right?
Hard work.
Yeah. So when it comes to doing the hard work and stuff, what can we as a society do to, you know, take the pledge to, like you guys say, be love? What can we as a society do to pledge to be love and advocate for nonviolence?
You mean can we do as a society to move from a pledge to becoming that?
Yes.
I mean, it's an everyday commitment. And it's also, you know, allowing yourself to do some form of study. You know, I think my father's teachings are a good place for a lot of people to start. And some people, they have faith traditions. A lot of our faith traditions are rooted in love. I mean, those are kinds of things that we need to take in on a day-to-day basis to prepare our spirits and our minds to be able to act from a framework of love, and the way that we talk to each other, and the way we gauge each other, the way we legislate, and the way we address conflict and injustices. So I think that's how we have to begin to move. It's just not automatic. Okay, I'm going to be love. Well, what does that really mean. I got to really delve into studying what really is love. What does it look like in person? Are there examples that I can look to for that? I think part of the reason my father was a gift to this nation is because he showed us the way of engaging in justice and evil and ugliness. And so it's not like it's something that's way, back in, millennial years. It's something that's been recent. And there are other people in society who embody that, who exhibit that. So looking at people, but again, doing the hard work of studying and making the same commitments you make when you're trying to push back from the table, you're trying to lose weight, when you're trying to do anything, if you're studying, when students are studying for a particular profession, they have to put in the time. The same thing to becoming people of character who exude love as an operational system, you got to put in that time.
Yeah. And you talked about your father, and you have inherited an amazing legacy, obviously. And so what I want to know is, how do you balance honoring his legacy while forging your own path as a leader and an advocate?
Just being me. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but, all of us are product of our parents. Good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. At 61, I've settled into who I am and who they are. And a lot of who they are is what I believe and what I try to live by on a day-to-day basis. Am I perfect at it? By no means. I got a lot of work to do because of the trauma and the tragedy in my life that I've had to work through, because it colors a lot of my daily experience. And so it makes it easy at this point in my life. At one point it was challenging because I was like, what about me? Like when I would go out and speak and people would say, your father. I'm like, I just spent 45 minutes pouring into y'all and that's all you see is my father. What about what I said? Did it have any meaning? Eventually some of that changed and, people will come. I've had people crying and saying a lot of things. And so, my mother really helps me on a daily basis in the sense that when she used to always tell me, whatever you do in this life, you don't have to be me, you don't have to be your father, but be your best self.
I love that.
So, I wake up every day saying, I can't be Martin Luther King Jr., I can't be Coretta Scott King, but I can be my best self. And that means, taking into consideration the things that she exhibited and exemplified before me, the things that she shared with me about my father that I may have not, been able to directly experience, but vicariously experience, and adopting that into, who I am and what I do on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I want to ask you this, right? So if he were alive today, what do you think he would see as the most pressing social issue, and how do you think he would address it?
Well, I usually don't like those questions because he's not alive. Yeah. And, it's, 56 years since he's been with us. So it's always hard to answer those questions because he's not. What I can say alternatively is that what he was working on before he was taken from us at such a young age, he was only 39 when he was assassinated, and he had just turned 39 3 months prior. And so, he was working on economic justice, economic empowerment. He was literally working with the SCLC in their economic Operation Breadbasket of bringing some kind of economic infrastructure to the Black community so that we would be empowered to be contenders in our world economically. We had Black businesses during that time, but part of the work of what he was doing is laying the foundation for making sure that those Black businesses not only circulate dollars within the community, but they got dollars from other communities to circulate in our community. We couldn't do that before the work that they did. You couldn't have a restaurant in Buckhead if you were Black, or in Cobb County if you were Black. But because of the work they did as a Black person, you can now have a restaurant there and your patrons happen to be white or Asian or Latina. And so, I think this economic piece is something that he was focused on with the sanitation workers, as you know, dealing with, working conditions, decent working conditions, fair wages, all of that kind of stuff. In fact, had he lived, this is what we should recognize, had he lived on the pathway that he was on, we wouldn't be having most of these discussions now. That's more the important question. Had he lived, would we be experiencing this, that, and the other? I think had he lived, because, you know, he was the voice of conscience. He was a rallying voice. And he was able to understand all aspects and interpret that for people. There's nobody interpreting things now. Everybody's just reacting and responding, but nobody's at a higher level helping people to understand where this is coming from, what this is about. How do we prepare for this? For instance, when they went back to the buses in Montgomery after the boycott ended, he wanted the people to understand this was a victory for justice. Don't treat this as a victory over white people. Although, you know, those who have been, you know, mistreating us and without dignity, you know, we can't look at them and victimize them now. You know, this is new for them. They got to learn how to now exist with us side by side with them on a bus. That's different for them. Yes, it shouldn't be, but it is. And so this is the way we're going to conduct ourselves. We don't have that now. We got to get in the mud with the mud. You know, when somebody's in the mud, we get in there with them, and we feel good about it. But at the end of the day, when everything's said and done, what the hell did we really just do? What progress did we just make? What advancement came from that? How better off are we really from doing that?
Wow. Yeah. You know, you definitely made a good point there. And I think I want to talk about this, right? So my generation, right? Gen Z. I'm 24. So I'm in Gen Z. And so when it comes to younger generations, I feel like that, at least in my generation in particular, there are lots of issues. And what I want to know is, as a younger generation, what are some things that we can be doing to help carry out the mission and help carry out the legacy?
I think I would add to what you are doing: study, learn, extract from generations before you. I think current generations tend to discount the ones before, not realizing the only reason you're doing what you're doing today is because of what they did. All of us. Even when my dad was born, there were generations before him, his dad, his granddad. They laid a foundation. In fact, my father attended Booker T. Washington High School here in Atlanta because his granddaddy fought for the establishment of the first black high school in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
You know? So we each lay a foundation for future generations. And future generations ought to have a little bit of deference for previous generations. And I don't think there's enough deference for that. I think they weren't smart enough. I'm like, what makes you think you're smart enough? And it's not smarts. Because if you're not spiritually prepared for what we are faced with, because these are spiritual battles, you know, there's a lot of evil in this world right now. And smarts is not going to just do away with it. There has to be a balance between mind, spirit, body, and emotion, and an alignment. And that generation can teach us a lot about that. That movement was very strong that my father led spiritually. Even those young people, they came from that place. They did it with a dignity and a strength. But there were a group of them, at least when they started out, that were willing to study and understand. Some took it, and because of what happens in youth with all of us, it's like, I'm impatient. Y'all old folks, y'all getting it wrong, taking too long. I mean, really. Yeah. But, I mean, we've all been there. I was there when I was 16, 18, 20, when I was in college, and 24. It was like, this don't make no sense. We can do this. We can get it done. But as you get older, you recognize, wait a minute, this is not as easy as we think, because you're dealing with human nature, humankind, and there's so much to understand about people in this whole process. These aren't systems. These aren't devices. These are complex human beings that we're dealing with. And the clash and the injustices are happening at the hands of complex human beings.
Yeah.
And we think, no, it's just cut and dry, right and wrong. Well, from whose vantage point? Because people see right and wrong differently. And so I think there's just a lot to be gleaned from previous generations, a lot of studying, a lot of understanding, too, that collective, coordinated efforts are very important.
Yeah.
You know, the silos, hey, I got my own platform. You know, those things are fine and good, but if we don't leverage the collective power, you know, we'll make these little incremental steps so everything else is going rapid. And so we're like horse and buggy, and everything else is, you know, very rapid at the speed of light almost.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And I want to shift gears a little bit here. I want to talk about what you guys are doing at the King Center, doing some extraordinary things, right? And one thing you guys got going on is y'all got the Beloved Community International Expo happening September 7th at 11 a.m. You'll be doing a book signing. Y'all gonna have food trucks, a kids zone, live entertainment, and it's gonna be free. So the Atlanta community definitely need to come out. Yeah, so when you talk about some of these things that you guys are doing, like for example, when people come out to this, what can they what can they expect to get out of this?
Well, the first thing is we encourage them to stop by the passport table.
Okay.
Because we're trying to create a real experience for people. You know, when we go out of the country, we have to have a passport. Some places we have to have a visa.
Yeah.
And so you pick up your passport, and you determine at that point, you know, what country do I want to visit? What nation do I want to visit? So we have about 30 plus nations that'll be there that represent all of the 7 continents.
I love that. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you visit these different places, you know, you can sample. In some instances, people will be having the food of their culture.
Nice.
And with others, they will teach you a little bit of language, because we wanted to make sure that when people left here, they had some familiarity and connectivity to those different cultures and understanding, more importantly, because part of where we're failing in this world is having an understanding and appreciation for the other. The other could be a lot of things, but you know, culturally, we need to understand each other. Daddy said we must learn to live together as brothers, and he meant sisters too, or we will be forced to perish together as fools. So this is part of the learning process that we've set out and created this World House experience, so that people can come and really open up their eyes of understanding and awareness about these countries, so that we see more of our connectedness than the differences. We get enough of that every day. I mean, you just turn on TV or the radio, you can hear all of the bickering, you know, you can hear all, you know, all of the divergent perspectives. I mean, you know, those are at a premium. But we got to find a way to spend more time saying, wait a minute, them food might be a little different from ours, but they have some of the same issues and challenges that we have over in this nation, in their nation. And so that's what, you know, we set this really up to do, to be a reflection of, you know, what my father talked about, learning to live together. And then the further talked about how we're interrelated in this world. How he talked about we're caught in this inescapable network of mutuality tied in the single garment of destiny, and what affects one directly affects all indirectly. And I can't be all that I would be to you all that you all be. So we're hoping that when people leave here, they understand better our interconnectedness, you know, because we all should have a frame of reference that we live in a world house. I reside in ATL, but I live in this larger world house. And what's happening over there, even though it may not directly hit me, it's indirect. And we all have a responsibility to understand, and where we can plug in, you know, to add to the solution of anything that is keeping people from being their best self.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely sounds really exciting to be able to see what other countries are like. And then y'all kind of really got it like a really travel experience. You get your
Right.
passport, go to
And
the
then
different
we got
countries and
the
stuff.
music and the entertainment, whether it's
Yeah.
music or dance, that will be taking place from the different
Nice.
nations as well. And this, as you mentioned, I'm doing book signing. I'm signing my mother's children's book on my mother, as well as the book that we published at King Center about 2 years ago called It Starts With Me. It might be 3 years now because time is flying.
It is.
But it starts with me, about a little girl, Amora, who's, really trying to show the world and young people in particular that we can operate from a place of being love-centered in things that we do, and how harmful it is, how heavy it is to carry hate around, and that love, the way of love, can really solve many issues, problems, conflicts. And it doesn't mean you're just kind of like, oh, I love you, whatever you want to do. No. Love is courageous. Love challenges injustice, and it works to rid the world of injustice. And so, I'll be signing those two around 2:30 p.m. And we just look forward to people coming out with the entire family. So
Nice.
this is
Family event.
family event, family friendly.
Awesome. Yeah, bring out the whole family. And then one thing and like you said about the books, one thing I have noticed is y'all have been doing more children's books and stuff, teaching children about, the movement. Of course, like you said, what your mother did, you got that children's book. And of course, It Starts With Me. Why is it important for children to know, what's going on and what happened? Why do you feel that it's important for them to get a good grasp of, what took place?
Because, the world, there's continuity that's needed from generation to generation. And the world presents so many different distractions and challenges that if you don't lay the proper foundation early, it can get off track, and not be in that freedom flow, as I call it. As my mother said, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation, which means that part of the responsibility of every generation is to contribute to the freedom struggle. But if you don't understand the struggle that happened before, how can you contribute to it and continue it? And there's always going to be those efforts to derail that, to undermine that, to resist that freedom struggle. And so connecting to this important history is very important, especially at a very young age, because, that's the age where kids are really taking it in, and you want to make sure that they're taking in the right stuff at an early age. And if we do it right, they become the ones who can really change the trajectory of our world to becoming more humane and just and peaceful.
Yeah, because they're next up. So
Yeah.
they taking it on next. And speaking of your father and your mother, you guys are in the process of getting together the 100th birthdays, celebrating the commemoration of their 100th birthday. So you guys are going to have the King Dream Capital campaign, the King 100 Global Music Series and Concert. So you guys are planning this a couple of years out. So this obviously is going to be huge.
Well, 2 to 4 years. My mom turns 100 in 2027, my dad in 2029.
Got it. Okay.
So we're still kind of in the works with all of this, and we'll be making more announcements next year, and then the year after, obviously, and then the following year will be my mother's, etc.
Nice. Yeah, so it's gonna be big, huh?
It's gonna be big, and we're looking to create a whole new campus and experience.
Nice.
The King Center is aged. It is aged out. My mother did a great job, but now it's time for new renovation.
Okay.
And we're looking forward to being a part of a new center and experience.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely be looking out for that. And so speaking of commemorative celebration, of course, the year is closing out, so we'll be coming up on the one for 2025. Any ideas on what that looks like?
I have to get back with you on that one.
Okay.
This year's been a little bit unique with everything going on around the election, but we're doing some of the same stuff that we've done. We always have our award ceremony and honoring people. And of course, the commemorative service is on the same day as the holiday, as the inauguration. So we'll be doing it a little bit earlier. at 9 in the morning as opposed to the
Yeah.
usual 10 o'clock that we start. And we still will have some, obviously we're going to always do something around nonviolence education and training. And with the children, you've participated in some of that in the past. And we will have a summit this year. We're going to be looking at dealing with AI because it's a looming threat to our humanity. And so we're going to take a look at that and, how do we bring some greater ethics to the conversation around AI. We're excited about that.
Okay, nice. Yeah, definitely a lot of good stuff to look forward to. And just to close it out, want to talk about, lastly, King Center's initiatives and programs. You guys have a lot going on. Of course, we got Students with King Reading Corner, my personal favorites, of course.
Of course.
You got Nonviolence 365. You got the Rethink podcast, the Beloved Community Talks. Why these particular initiatives within the King Center?
Well, I mean, the idea is to reach every generation with the Kingian way. That's what I'd like to say. I think if we had more individuals and leaders who thought like a king, who think like a king, meaning, who exemplify some of the character traits of my father, I think we wouldn't be dealing with many of the injustices that we are dealing with in our world today, certainly not at the level. And so we wanted to create these kind of experiences for different groups. And we also have a scholars intern program and a fellows program.
Oh, nice. Okay.
For college students and those that are beyond college, because we have senior fellows as well. And the idea is to begin to raise up a new generation of people who understand my father's teachings, who can really be officially endorsed by the King Center to speak to those issues from a Kingian vantage point. So we're really excited about the Scholars Intern and the Fellows Program. We have an initiative with the faith community, because we know that the faith community was leading that movement, and that faith initiative is called Better Together, and getting them exposed to our online, Nonviolence 365 online, learning it, and then engaging it collectively in their different communities. How do we make nonviolence practical in everyday real issues? And we're going to be challenging all of those faith leaders that go through this education and training to do just that. With some measurable results. So that's our work. What I say, the dream lives and the legacy continues.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Yeah. And I definitely applaud you guys on everything y'all are doing. It's definitely amazing work. And I like that the programs and initiatives that you guys are getting the community involved. The people are, a part of these various things. And it really just gets people involved in the movement and the legacy.
And
all
giving
that.
them something to focus on.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the word beloved community. Everybody uses it today as a buzzword. We created a beloved. I'm like, really? There's a lot that has to go into creating a beloved community. There's a lot of personal work that has to happen with individuals, and obviously the collective work. But we wanted to make sure that people had a goal, a vision. How do we rally around something in common? And I think the beloved community is that. And so we made sure that most of our programmatic thrusts come under the banner of the Beloved Community. That's why you see Beloved Community Talks, Beloved Community Leadership Academy. That's another program that we have with 13 to 18-year-olds.
Okay.
Beloved Community Talks, Beloved Community Commemorative Service in January, Beloved Community Awards. We haven't figured out the Students with King yet, but
we usually play the video at the beginning.
We're working on it, but it's still a part of the whole beloved community effort.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and congratulations on everything you guys got going on once again. It's great. And you guys have the event coming up this weekend that Atlanta should be at. So that's going to be at 11
starts
a.m.
at 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. at the King Center. Streets will be closed down. And a stage, and we're just asking everybody to come out. You don't have to pay a dime, other than I think you might have to pay something for food. I don't know if that's the case. But, that's it.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, so make sure you guys going out to that, show your support, and hey, visit some various countries and get that various country experience, because I know that's going to be exciting. So definitely looking forward to that. Appreciate you so much for coming in studio to talk with me. This has been great. We always have good talks.
Yes,
so,
we do.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you too.
Yeah, and definitely looking forward to the future and what you guys have planned within the King Center, and of course the 100th celebration that'll be coming up in a few years. I know that's going to be exciting and big, like you already said. So we'll be looking out for that. And thank you guys, the listeners, so much for tuning in. This has been your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network. I'm Tyrik Wynn. See you guys next time.